Hey guys, my name is Maggie. I'm a Danish baker. Today I'm gonna show you how to make a very delicious and traditional Danish pie. It's called in Danish Jordbærrabarbertærte, which translates to strawberry rhubarb pie. It has marzipan in it. It has a Danish crust, and then of course strawberry and rhubarb, and then it has an oat crumble on top. It's very, very good. I'll just try to share some tips and tricks that I've learned as I've baked both in Denmark and in America. Anyway, roll up your sleeves, wash your hands, and let's get baking. Alrighty, so really quick before we start, I do want to say I am using a kitchen scale, but on my website you will get the ingredients also in cups as well, and in Danish. We're going to start with a shortbread crust. So we're going to start with flour, and I want to note really quick, if you're baking in the US at least, I can tell you for certain that using organic flour is going to be your best bet at replicating the Danish flavor and texture profile, because it has the most similar makeup to Danish ingredients. I just poured some flour in and some powdered sugar, and then we're gonna do some butter, and after that it's just egg. And then we're gonna take it over to the mixer with a cake attachment and mix it together until it's just combined. So here we have our crust. It's a little bit sticky, but not much. You don't have to flour the surface when you're just handling it. And it shouldn't actually stick to your fingers. So now we're gonna take this and we're gonna put this in the fridge. We're gonna shape it into like a disc, and then we're gonna grab some plastic wrap, or you can just use a Tupperware container. And we're gonna stick this in the fridge for about 30 minutes at least. So while our crust is in the fridge, we're gonna mix the crumble that goes on top. So we're gonna start with regular granulated sugar, and then we're gonna put some butter in. The next ingredient is flour, and then we'll add some vanilla sugar. Now, I mix my own vanilla sugar. If you're in Denmark, you can just buy this. If you're in America, you can also just use vanilla extract. It's okay to add a little bit more liquid to this. It'll survive. However, if you want to make it yourself, it is a vanilla bean powder mixed with powdered sugar. And you can go to my website to see about the recipe for that as well. Then take some oat, and it doesn't matter. These are steel cut oats. We're going to take our cake attachment, we're going to mix this just until it comes together. We don't want it to become like a dough, we want it to be a crumble. That's the goal, is for it to actually crumble. So it took a couple minutes. I just put the mixer on medium speed. If you mix it to the point where it becomes a dough, that's okay. It just means that the butter has softened enough. So go put it in the fridge, and then it will be easier to crumble afterwards. So as you can see, this is, well, crumble. It's a crumble because it's crumbly. It goes through like powdery stage. Keep mixing it through the powdery stage until it comes together to create this crumble. Now we're going to take this, we're going to put it in a different container, and then we are going to mix that marzipan mixture. That one that's called Marzipan. Because I'm in America when I'm making this, I don't have marzipan on hand, and it's not cheap or easy to find. So with that being said, we don't need to make marzipan first. We can just put in the components of marzipan, which is almond flour and sugar syrup. And depending on where you are and depending on the flavor profile of your almond flour, you might also want to add a splash of almond extract. Because personally, the almond flour that I use is really mild. It doesn't taste a lot like almond. So for that sake, I add a little bit of almond extract. But in Denmark, just add marzipan. But if you're in America or somewhere where it's not easily accessible, or you just don't have marzipan, I'm just gonna teach you how to make it without the marzipan. So we start with some almond flour. You can use, somebody might end up yelling at me for this, but you can use unblanched almonds. So you can use almond meal where it's not this pretty creamy color. It would have like little specks of the shell in it. That's not going to change the flavor very much. It'll just change the look. And then we're gonna add a sugar syrup. So I just made this morning. It is just 50% sugar, 50% water, and you put it over the stove over medium heat, and then you just let it sit and just simmer lightly until there are no more sugar crystals left. In a pinch, you could just use water and just add a little extra sugar to this mixture, because it doesn't matter as much with this mixture that we use a sugar syrup necessarily. So we'll just add a little bit of this, and then we're gonna add some sugar, and after that, some butter. And then I mentioned a splash of almond extract. So from here, we're just gonna mix this mixture together until it gets really nice and fluffy. Alrighty, so we're back for mixing. This is such a small amount, and I have a special cake spatula, and it has a scraper on the side. If you don't have this, you can simply scrape in between, scrape the sides of the bowl periodically while you're mixing. You can see how airy this is. It's really light and airy because of the creaming of the butter and the sugar. And the next thing is adding egg. It takes about an egg and a half to mix this. If you wanted to just do 2 eggs, I'm sure it actually would probably be okay. I'm just going to do an egg and a half because I can use this egg somewhere else. So then we're going to mix this together on low, and as it mixes, we'll also add the flour to it while it is mixing. And then I'll show you what it looks like from there. All right, so we're back. We've mixed the eggs and we've added the flour. You can see it's just a little bit more dense looking now. So it creamed really well together, but something I do want to say, if you're a baker and you're going to be making more than one portion, more than one pie, add the egg a little bit at a time. I've learned from experience that if I double or quadruple a recipe, the egg will separate from the rest of the mixture. So be careful about that if you're gonna make a larger amount. All right, so here we have our marzipan mixture, we have our crumble, and I went and got the pie crust from the fridge. So you can press on it, but it's a little bit firm. It doesn't crack like a ton on the edges when I press on it. It still sings together. If the butter in it is super firm, it'll just crack and then it'll be hard to roll this out. I'm gonna get the pie form, which is actually just a tart form. I'm gonna get the rhubarb and I'm gonna get the strawberries, and then we will assemble our pie. So this is a non-stick pan, and you might be wondering, what if I don't have a tart form or a tart pan? What if I just have an American pie pan or a casserole dish or something? That's okay. But because of how much sugar and egg it has in it, you need to make sure that the crust doesn't go over the edges or else it'll burn. And you can see that I just sprayed it with some non-stick cooking spray. That's because I've had experiences where even though this is non-stick, it still sticks. Alrighty, so you're gonna wanna flour your surface very generously when you're working with this pie crust. If it sticks to the surface, it's going to be really difficult to work with. So it's a little bit cold, so we're gonna pound at it. Now it's a little bit longer this way, so I'll rotate it. I'll do this until the butter in it softens enough so that I can roll it easily. And if I have any tips or tricks about getting it round, just rotate it a little bit at a time. I don't get my pie crust to be super round. So we want this to be just a little bit bigger than the pan so that it can be put inside of it. So it's not even, you can see that, but I'm actually gonna show you how to navigate that. Because let's be honest, it's usually not perfect when we're at home. So I just dusted that part, and then I'm gonna dust this side. From here, I have this special dough pricker thing, I don't even know what it's called. And I prick it like this. You can use a fork. That's perfectly fine, and I do it on both sides. And I'm going to just lift this into it. If this dough was not cold, it would fall apart when you try to move it. Then what I do from here is I push down and into the grooves. So down and in, push down and in. So towards myself, I push towards myself so that it will get that kind of groovy pattern that the tart pan has. So I'm gonna take a rubber scraper because this is a non-stick coating on my tart pan. And then I'm gonna angle it down Rather than making it flat or angling it towards the center of the dough, I'm angling it away because it will shrink ever so slightly when you're baking it. And I'm just taking all the excess off. Now we have our holes to patch. So this is where you can get a little bit of water or some egg, because I had some leftover egg, right? So I'm going to just dip my finger in it. I'm just gonna do a light coating of egg. So then we'll rip off a piece and we'll push it into that little crack. And then we'll do the same over here. And then we'll trim the excess off. It's just as simple as that. And the extra dough, you could crumble it on top with your crumble, or you can eat it, or you can make little cookies out of it. I mean, it's totally up to you. You could also just throw it away, but I don't like to waste, so I usually will make this into little cookies. So I'll just set that aside for now. Now we're going to take our marzipan mixture, and we're going to just put all of that in the middle. Now, you might think it's gross that I'm using my hands. You don't have to. I'm used to doing it this way because I have worked in bakeries. And then we're going to spread out an even coating. If you're making a lot of these, you can also take a piping bag and just pipe it in like a spiral. It doesn't have to be perfectly even because it will melt and spread out as it bakes. But one thing that is important is that we don't want the center to be higher than anywhere else. The center needs to be a little bit lower than the rest of the filling because the center cooks the slowest. So from here, we're going to add some strawberry and some rhubarb. So I'm gonna take these strawberries and put these on. I'm just gonna do an even coat of it. You could use whole frozen strawberries or even fresh strawberries. I want a really even coat of strawberries and rhubarb so that every bite has both strawberry and rhubarb in it. All right, so now we have an even coat of strawberries, and we're gonna do the same with our rhubarb. So now we've got all of our rhubarb on there, and now it's time for our crumble. You can press it together and then break it apart with your fingers, and that will create larger clumps. You can also just take it as is, but we just want to evenly distribute all the crumble, whatever size you like the crumble pieces in. It's just an even distribution is what we're going for, so that it bakes evenly. There we have it. Now our pie is ready to go in the oven. So we'll put it in the oven. My oven is at 400 degrees. And I don't know about this size of pie, so I actually don't know how long this one will bake for. So I'm guessing it'll be about 45 minutes, but I'm gonna bake this and come back when it's all done and tell you how long it took. Here's the pie, all finished. And just so you know, for these next steps, you're gonna think that you're probably gonna be wondering why it can come out of the pie pan really easily. It's because I froze it. I put it in the freezer for about an hour. That's just kind of a little trick. It took 40 minutes to bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I will say this, every oven is different. My oven, it heats unevenly. So I have to rotate halfway in between. So I did 20 minutes, and then I rotated it, and then 20 more minutes. Then when I checked to see if it was doughy in the middle, which you check with this marzipan cake mixture that's on the bottom, if you stick a toothpick in it or a knife and it comes out gooey, then it's not fully baked. I'm gonna cut into it so we can actually see how this pie looks on the inside. Let's look. Here it is. That's beautiful. That's exactly how we want it to be. There we have it. Our beautiful strawberry rhubarb pie. Now this recipe, besides the marzipan, it is completely unaltered from the Danish bakeries that I worked in. So it's pretty much as authentic as you can get it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, you can comment below, or you can find me at my website, which there's a link below to the recipe. You can contact me through my email. I'll do my best to answer any questions that anybody might have. I'll just sign off and say happy baking, and I'll see you guys next time.